Hello and welcome to another edition of The Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me this week I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, not bad. Not a bad way to respond, I think, from last weekend's misery, and not a bad result after waking up early this morning.
Yeah, look, I think we're both just saying we're feeling it. It was a very early start, 5 a.m. kickoff time here in Australia. I think it's only going to be another week or two before the daylight saving switch is over. But then, of course, that means 2 a.m. weekend games, which will be just as lovely. But look, as you just said, it was a great way to bounce back after that Fleetwood game. We were saying last week, Brad and myself, that these two games are almost the most important of the season in terms of how we respond to the loss, given the fact that it kind of had shades of last season's defeats, and whether we were able to bounce back straight away would sort of set the tone for how we would respond to setbacks this season. And respond we did, starting with that Rochdale game where we were the 3-0 victors. Wilkes managed to bag 2 goals and Magennis got one late as well. So how did you see this performance and how did you see the players taking the field?
Well, I think the game on the weekend was, in a sense, was probably overall it was probably was one of our strongest performances regardless, but I think particularly with needing that bounce back factor and needing to respond really strongly from the previous game against Fleetwood. I think they ticked all those boxes. They did it really well. Really dynamic going forward. Pretty strong defensively. I don't remember maybe one or two sort of half chances that Rochdale created. I think maybe one or two off corners or something, but nothing like, I don't remember them really penetrating us in any significant fashion. So look, I think it was exactly the performance we needed and exactly the performance I wanted. Anyway, we took the 3 points in a dominant fashion, so it was a good response.
And I think one of the big factors with the game last week was when we fell behind and we substituted, I think it was Batty who went off for Meyer and really opened up that midfield for Fleetwood to exploit. I think having Smallwood back in there this week really emphasised the absence that he had, the absence that we'd felt with him not being in the side for that Fleetwood game, because I think he really shored up that midfield and allowed Doherty and Honeyman a lot more freedom going forward. So his return to the team, I don't think it's a coincidence that we haven't conceded a goal in any game that he's played in. I think he's becoming a very vital cog in that midfield. And I guess I'd also point out that we had Greaves debuting for us in that game. So not so often that you get a father-son in football, but always good to see. And look, he looked really, at home at centre-back. He didn't put a foot out of place. I thought he was really terrific on debut.
Yeah, he certainly was. I think, he's had two strong performances so far. I think, it's one of those ones. I think when Device is recovered from, I think it was an illness, that he'll probably just slot back in. But it's going to be one of those calls where it's going to be harsh, I think, on Greaves because he's performing really well. Yes,
and it's interesting that Greaves came in over Jones or McLaughlin even. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is, but I think I guess it's just one of those things. Was Greaves one that McCann made comment of last season? Is he one that McCann had said something about how promising? I vaguely.
Yeah, it might have been him and Sheaf maybe.
Yeah, there was. I can't remember, but I think obviously, he's obviously doing the hard work in training. He's doing all the right things. So he earned his chance, and he's another player who's getting an opportunity in there, and he's grabbing it with both hands. So more power to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the goals themselves, it's sort of funny. I feel like ever since we had the episode reviewing Callum Elder, and you made the comment about, he probably needs to work on his set pieces. He's delivered 2 fantastic corners for 2 goals in a couple of games, and did so again for the opener in this one for Wilkes, which was terrific. And then it was a really well-worked corner routine with Honeyman and I want to say maybe it was Elder as well. that led to the Magennis goal the third goal. The Wilkes' second was a really neat volley as well.
Yeah, they were very all three impressive finishes. I didn't realize Magennis could jump that high because it was quite a leap to nod that one in. But yeah, it was a nice short corner routine from Magennis' goal, from Honeyman to Elder, and then just played straight back in and whipped across. That was great. But I think that second goal of Wilkes's is probably the pick of them. That was from that position and from the angle that the ball came in and all that sort of stuff to be able to turn volley and put that away. I guess really shows the vein of form that he's in and the level of confidence that he's currently playing at. So.
And interestingly, I think I saw the stat that Wilkes has now scored more goals. I think it's 10 in 27 or something like that. He's actually got a better return than Bowen did from his start to a City career. So, you sort of, I guess because there's such a fixation on KLP being the natural successor to Bowen in the side, being a youth product coming through the ranks, we sort of discount the fact that Wilkes, at a pretty similar age, is putting together a pretty good start to the season as well. So it's great to have these options.
Yeah, and I think that's been the key, even in our terrific start to last season. Not that I really want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but like we had at that time, you had Grzycki on one side and Bowen on the other, both playing really well and both contributing regularly. And I think we seem to have sort of got that into a similar position again, where the players that we have are being challenged to hold those positions and are playing well and producing goals and assists and moments that are impacting our games, which was sorely lacking for large portions of last season. But this season, it's all there. We're now 6 from 7, top of the league. There's not a lot to complain about, I don't think, at the moment.
No, definitely. So just before we move on to the Wimbledon game, I guess my 3-1 for the game, I'd probably give best of field to Wilkes because of the fact that he was able to bag the 2 goals. And as we said, they were both really well-taken finishes as well. So he looks a man full of confidence at the moment. I've given the 2 to Honeyman. I think it was another terrific display from him. Got the assist for the the third goal. I keep saying second. And again, was just really a strong presence in midfield. And I'll give the 1 to Elder because I've been a little bit critical of him this season, I think. But I think this was probably one of his better displays. So, I think that's sort of where I'd apportion those votes. How do you see it?
Look, I think that's probably pretty fair, those choices. I probably wouldn't argue much with those ones this week.
Fair enough. We'll look ahead at we should look back at the Wimbledon game as well. That was this morning, 1-0 victory. We sort of already touched on it a little bit, but I thought it was interesting, sort of by nature of the fact it was a midweek game. McCann looked to make a couple of changes to the side. Sounds like Wilkes had a bit of a stomach bug, so he wasn't really meant to play at all in the game. So dropped out of the side for Adelican, who came back in. And we had Coyle starting at right back over Emmanuel, which was great to see him given that chance to have a league start. And it was really unfortunate that he went off early injured. But, I thought he looked quite good while he was on the pitch.
Yeah, you got a feel for poor old Louis Coyle. He finally got a chance and he just got absolutely clattered in those first few minutes. And then it was only 15 minutes later after that or something, he got hammered again. So...
And it's tough because you think, from his perspective, he's probably thinking, I really need to prove my spot in the team. I can't pull out of a challenge. I've got to go in full-blooded, and that's the result.
Yeah, it was pretty unfortunate on his part, but I think McCann's shown his hand that he's not going to be afraid to rotate through that squad, and I think another chance will come for Coyle. I think we're in a pretty hectic sort of run of fixtures, I think, at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't even surprise me if it was next week again or whatever that he tries to give Emmanuel that bit of a break, because obviously this morning was supposed to be a rest for Emmanuel, but he still ended up playing 70 odd minutes. So
and he played pretty well, for as tired as he probably was,
Yeah, he did. I think this morning's game seemed to be a totally different proposition to Rochdale on the weekend. despite the fact I think they said in the call they play the same formation and all those sorts of things, but it was just chalk and cheese. The games were completely different. I think, not sure what was going on this morning, but I think we played pretty poorly this morning. My first impressions were really, really slow ball movement, and that was hampering our attacking play and our ability to break them down and get in that final third. Just very, very sloppy. But in saying that the spirit and that never say die attitude that seems to be developing in our squad this season, was shown again. Managed to get in front, and even though there was a lot of holding on, and those last probably 10 minutes were quite nervy with a few dangerous sort of opportunities in our box. The boys were again late in that game throwing themselves around trying to block those shots and block the crosses. I have no idea how Honeyman can run as much as he does. I know they said, like the comment was made, that he's an Energizer Bunny, but it seems to be, it's becoming more and more apparent. I don't know if he wasn't able to get fully fit last year or something, but it is insane, like how much he is able to sprint throughout the game. In the night, like the 89th minute, he's down on our 18-yard box, picking the ball up and sprinting, trying to make a counter.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, I would tend to agree that it was it was definitely a poorer performance than the weekend. I noted in McCann's comments, he said whilst it was a poor performance, I think it was a really good defensive performance. It was really sloppy going forward. So, because I've seen a bit on Twitter, people sort of saying it was a really bad game, and I mean, I sort of get where they're coming from, but I think comparing it to the Fleetwood game, for instance, which I look at as that was a bad game where we were very sloppy, conceded some pretty poor goals. I think the fact that we were able to grind out the 1-0 win was a really professional. It was a mark of a really professional side, I thought, and I particularly liked the tactics towards the end of the game. I sort of pointed out this morning that it's not always by the rules, but the sort of little time-wasting tactics the players were starting to employ. I saw at one point Emmanuel kicked the ball away. A free kick was given to Wimbledon. Emmanuel kicked the ball away and sprinted back down to the fence. And then Wimbledon got the ball to take the free kick, and then Wilkes knocked it away. And I think Wilkes got carded for it, but it was just funny seeing them both doing it on the same play. And Honeyman getting involved in a bit of niggle as well. So, you sort of laugh at that sort of thing, but that's sort of what you've got to do at this level of the game to sort of grind out the wins. Opposition managers don't particularly like it, and we'll talk about what opposition managers have had to say about us in a little bit, but a win's a win. It's the first time in 50 years that we've started with 3 wins at home with 3 clean sheets at home as well. So I think the last time we started with 3 wins was back in 2012-13, and I think the comment was that the last 2 times we've started with 3 league wins at home, we've been promoted. So that's always a good positive sign as well.
Yeah, look, if we can keep that trend, going, then I'll be pretty happy. But I think, like as you say, it wasn't a great performance this morning, but we managed to grind out the result, and I think that's what's important. And these are the sort of games that can, be those cornerstones. These are the sort of results that you build Premier Championships on. Is being able to play poorly but still finding a way to win and finding a way. Sometimes it's finding a way not to lose. So,
absolutely,
just stoked that we're on top.
It's a funny feeling. It's great that I think there's been a few times we've been top mid-round or mid-match, but it's great to be top at the end of a round. Is always a nice spot to be in. And we were talking before about Hull-born Jacob Greaves, and it was I'd have to say probably about 20 years since the last time we've had 3 Hull-born players in the starting 11, with Coyle, KLP and Greaves all lining up in the starting 11 this morning. It was 2 of them linking up for the goal with a pretty well-timed volley from Greaves from the corner and then KLP nodding home. As McCann said, he'd be a bit frustrated that he's had a few goals chalked out for offside in recent weeks, but no one was taking that one off him, and it was great to see him get another goal and keep going.
Yeah, look, I thought he was pretty good this morning. It was really well taken, or like well finished goal. he looked dangerous, was doing his thing. I think was it the start of Rochdale? He was a bit slow as well. Everyone was off against Fleetwood, but I think the first half an hour or so he was a bit off at Rochdale. And I think someone said the call might have said they could hear Grant McCann was on the sideline telling KLP to get his head in the game or something. I vaguely remember something.
I missed the first maybe 20 minutes of Rochdale. I was having internet issues, so I might have missed that. But
I'm not sure. Right, there was something. I vaguely remember something about him being a bit off, but which happens from time to time. But he's responding, and I think overall he's having a really strong season when you consider that some of the people that he's stopping from or keeping out of that starting 11. He's doing a fantastic job. So I think he's earned his spot and he's deserved that goal.
Yeah, and given the fact that in preseason McCann was saying that KLP might not start every game, that he'd have to bide his time, the fact that he's started every game this season, I'm pretty sure, is pretty terrific. It shows that McCann's putting a lot of trust in him, and I think he won the EFL League. I don't know if it was League One or EFL Young Player of the Month for September, so that's also a great sign for him.
Yeah, I think anytime you pick up an award like that, it's it's well deserved, and it's just another string to his bow. Whether at the end of the day, does it mean that much? Probably not, but it's nice to be recognised for your performances.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess my MVPs for this match, I'll probably give the 3 to Honeyman. I think consistency between the two games, the consistent element is Honeyman, and as you say, his running, his effort, he's just everywhere on the pitch. He's just really developing into a really key player for us this season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up the player of the season at the end of the season for his efforts. Probably KLP for the goal, for his efforts. I think he was another one that was probably the brighter spark in our attack. I don't think Adelican had a particularly good game. He had a few good moments, but sort of drifted in and out of the game. And then I'll give the 1 to Emmanuel, because I think, sort of alluded to before, the fact that he was probably quite tired, I assume, if he was being given a rest or he was being managed and he was sort of thrust into the game. He was really strong up and down that right-hand side and was linking up really well, particularly with Wilkes when he came on, but Adelican before that as well. So I'd probably give him the 1.
Yeah, look, I think my only I might argue with you on Emmanuel, and not because I don't think he deserved a point, but I think I'd probably possibly give it to Greaves or even Burke. I think just to be nice, I'll give it to Greaves. I think it's not always easy to come in, especially for someone like Geordie, step into those shoes, and such a vocal character and a important part of defence, but to step in and not once but the 2 games in a row to perform really well as the would be probably the youngest on the park. So I give a point to Jacob Reeves.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. So there's not a whole lot of off-field discussion to touch on this week, but I saw an interesting article in the Hull Daily Mail, which had been something at the back of my mind for the last few games, which is sort of the nature of opposition managers after games to be saying that they played better than us, or that we didn't necessarily deserve the win. And I think I think it was Baz in the Hull Daily Mail sort of said if these managers were on the money, then I guess we'd be bottom of the table because we wouldn't deserve any of our wins. But what can you pinpoint anything about the way that we've been playing this season that you would think tends to motivate managers to talk in this way? Is it just managers being managers and trying to spin the result as not being as bad as it might have been for their team? Is it they're a bit jealous of us perhaps, or what do you think it might be?
I think perhaps it's a little bit of there's still that big club mentality, or like big club perception of us, deservedly so. I think we've earned that, but I think there's the perception is that that we're a big club and we've dropped down and we should be we've still got a budget of players of whatever it is. Someone said 8 million or whatever, and that we should be blowing all these teams off the park. And I guess they're saying we should be beating everyone 9-0 every week or something. And if we're not doing that, then we're not playing well enough. So I think there's a little bit of, they're trying to tear us down a little bit and say, oh, well, you guys should be playing, with the players that you've got on hand and the amount of money you've got, you should be, But I mean, we're 6 from 7, we're top of the league. I don't know what else we really have to do. The other part is, I think, is the flip side is that they're trying to still, salvage some confidence in their players and continue to build that morale for their own squads by saying, look at the team you guys went up against, and like someone like AFC Wimbledon this morning, you go, you guys worked really hard, and you've only given away a 1-0, one goal away to the team that's now top of the league, who just dropped out of the championship. For me, sure, I mean, if I was Wimbledon player, I'd be happy to receive those sort of comments from a manager after the game. Some of the others, though, I don't know if it's been fully deserved. There's the couple of 3-0 wins that we've had and stuff. Well, it's hard to argue. One of them, he said, oh, yeah, and we weren't really well, but once you get 3-0 behind, it's hard to compete. And I was like, you can't have played that well if you got 3-0 behind. It's certainly a weird one.
It's interesting. And look, I take your point about the fact that we do probably have a much larger budget than clubs in the division. But one thing I find interesting about this season, if it's sort of this trend continues and we are up fighting for promotion, comparing it to our last promotion season under Bruce in 15-16, where that was a season where we genuinely had essentially a Premier League squad. We'd kept most of the players. We had, your Michael Dawsons, your Hernandez, your Diami, your Robertson, Klukas, etc., or maybe not Klukas, but a lot of those players who we'd had in the Premier League and we'd managed to retain to keep that core together to bounce straight back up, where that season it did feel like we were bashing up on teams and we beat a few teams 6-0, 5-0, 6-0 sort of thing. This season, the recruitment last season was essentially recruiting League One players. And this season, we're also recruiting League One players. It just so happens that now we're in League One. So I put a little bit more stock in the fact that we're actually playing well as a squad this season with players that aren't, we're not splashing cash going out and buying championship players to pull us back up. We're buying, we got Josh Emmanuel for free from a relegated Bolton, for instance, and he's one of our best players this season. We've got, we bought Honeyman from Sunderland last season. We got Smallwood on a free from Blackburn. Like these aren't, big money signings. So I take the point that, we clearly got a championship budget or a lower championship budget that's probably dwarfs a lot of those. AFC Wimbledon, for instance, would have a tiny budget in comparison. But I do think it's a bit of sour grapes from some of these managers in this division. And, yes, you probably do need to spin results a certain way to keep the confidence going. It's just, it's a funny trend that we've had in every game so far this season. One interesting factor I noted this morning, looking at the table, is that all 7 of our games have been against sides that are now sort of mid-table in League One. We haven't faced a single team that's in the relegation zone. We haven't faced a team yet that's in the playoff places. That'll change this weekend. But that potentially bodes pretty well for us that either side of playing us, teams that we've been playing have been picking up points and aren't doing too poorly. So, as a barometer of how the quality of our opponents has been, I think the fact that we've come away with 6 out of 7 wins is pretty terrific.
Yeah, I think. Look, I mean, I said it before. I said it earlier. 6 out of 7 wins, top of the table. How can you complain?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we look ahead to the games to come, we will do our player review. And this week we're looking at Dan Batty, who probably surprisingly hasn't had as much of a look in this season as we might have thought. He's only had the 2 starts this season with another 2 appearances off the bench, but 62 appearances all up for us having come through the youth system. Where do you see his place in the side? I know he signed a 1-year extension last year. Is the sense potentially that I guess because he doesn't have a place in the starting 11, perhaps this will be his last year with us? I don't know whether it's because he seemed pretty reasonable at championship level for us. I wouldn't necessarily say he's not good enough to make the cut, but it just seems as if his position is one where we've tried to bring in other players, which has meant that by nature they've gotten the chances ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think look, I think as you said, I thought he went he went reasonably well last season. I think when he's had the chances he's had this year in league and cup, he's performed well.
Was it the EFL trophy where he got the captain's armband? I think.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing I can really put it down to, like my only real direct comparison between him and I guess the other players that occupy the same position is maybe that bit of hint of athleticism, maybe some are a bit quicker or a bit more agile. Not that he's not a Huddleston sort of level of pace or anything, but I think his range of passing is really good. He's quite strong on the ball. He's good in the tackle. Like, he has lots of good attributes. And I think maybe it's just that McCann wants to play that really high energy, high octane sort of football, and maybe that's where Batty is sliding down the pecking order. But in saying that, we've already seen, Smallwood cop an injury this year. We've got a long way to go. There's going to be plenty of twists and turns on so many different levels in terms of results, in terms of players and injuries and form, that I think it's really impossible to make any serious call on his future at the club. I think we've seen you look at the Premier League and Van Dijk's done his ACL. Something God forbid doesn't happen, but something like that happens to Smallwood or Doherty, and all of a sudden there's a spot that's there, available for someone like Batty to step in and play a lot of football. So.
And it's good having an option like him on the bench. I think he's certainly a reliable option to come into the side. As you say, his range of passing is good. I think you're right. It is probably his athleticism more than anything else. It's probably putting him down the order compared to a Honeyman or a Doherty who can just run for days pretty much. I think that's probably the factor counting against him. I think it will be interesting if we start to try to plan for. The difficulty for us almost every season is we never seem to have much certainty about what league will be in the following season. So that's always a justification for not having any contract negotiations until the last minute, or we let players just leave. For instance, I think I saw a comment today about KLP basically being the next Bowen and the Allams potentially looking for another sale. And you think, well, okay, but he probably needs a contract extension to get to that point. He's not going to be worth a whole lot next year. It's probably going to be the year or two after that. So players like KLP, Batty, who's out of contract, there's probably a few others out of contract as well. And it's probably a discussion for later in the season. But it would be nice if we started to see, going along with the positivity of being top of the league, if we started to see a few players re-signing on slightly extended deals, it would just keep that ball rolling.
Yep. We've had the conversation about the Allams and how they run their contract negotiations at Hull City many, many times.
Broken record, yeah.
I don't know if I really want to go into it again. It just frustrates me.
Well, so just back on Batty, I mean, the only other thing I can add on him that's a very random sort of fact to associate with him is you always play. I used to always play FIFA. Starting with a Hull City campaign, working us up from whatever league we start in, usually be the Championship up to the Premier League. And you sort of, you play your cup games, you rotate the squad and get the academy kids in. And back in FIFA 17 or something like that, sort of been years and years ago now. I remember Batty coming into my side and he was 50 rated or something like that. So I thought he was going to be awful. And he was terrific, scored a couple of great goals. And I thought, geez, chuck him in the first 11. So the name always stuck with me from that point. So when he came into the side for real, it was quite exciting because you'd always get those random academy players in FIFA who you'd only ever really see, no disrespect to them, but you'd only ever really see when City was releasing them at the end of their youth contracts. So to see one of those sorts of random so-called youth players in FIFA coming through into the main team was quite funny to see. That's probably my lasting memory of Batty at this stage, which He's one of those ones. I mean, he's not a very flashy player, so he doesn't have a whole lot of highlights in that sense, but he's a pretty reliable player, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that sort of just summed it up pretty well. It's not very flashy, but very reliable.
Yeah. So we'll look ahead now to the first of two games we've got next week, being against Peterborough, who you could basically blindfold yourself, point to a random season in the last 10 years and guess that they were managed by Darren Ferguson, and you'll probably be right because this is his third spell managing them over that time, I think, or it might be an even longer stretch than that. But I was looking back when we last played them, and it was the 2012-13 season, so first promotion season under Bruce. And my lasting memory of playing them was I think they'd started that season with 9 or 10 losses in a row. And we were playing them at the end of September, which coincided with the Aussie Rules Grand Final down here. And I was down in Melbourne to watch the Swans play. And we'd won the flag, so I was out celebrating afterwards and was blind drunk and sort of vaguely remembered to check the City score. And so we were down, I think we were down 3-0 or 4-0 or something horrendous like that. And I was just like, it's all right. I just had no care at that point for that. I think we drew with them later in the season as well. We would have got George Boyd off them that season, I think, was probably the main link as well. But yeah, I haven't played them since then. I think they've been bouncing between League One and the Championship, and we've probably just missed them whenever they've been in the Championship. And I guess the other link being that Grant McCann was their manager for bit over a season. I think he almost got them to the playoffs and then was sacked after a pretty poor start to the next season. So there might be a bit of fire in the clash for that reason. But other than that, they've won 4 of their last 5 games in pretty good form. So it'll be our first big test, I would say.
Yeah, it should be a good test on the weekend. Really looking forward to it. I think we've responded well to the Fleetwood game now. Now, again, it's whether we can carry that on and continue on. I read something that someone said, you're probably not going to go through a season undefeated. But if you can go through in like little clumps of 3 or 4 games where you're going 3 or 4 games in a row where you win and then you might drop some points, and then you go 3 or 4 games getting a win, then you're probably you're guaranteed you're going to be up in that top sort of section of the table. Yeah. So I think I'll be happy if we can continue a little run of form like that. We've had 2 wins, we've had a loss, we've had 2 wins now, so another couple of wins, and we'll see where we go. But I think we've got ourselves to the top. We just got to keep doing what we're doing and maintain that position, maintain the rage, so to speak. And I think we have. I mean, we've shown so far that we have the tools at our disposal to win this league and to win the matches that are presented to us. So I'm looking forward to the weekend, and I think hoping for a very strong performance and a good result.
Yeah, and as you say, I think no team can expect to go through undefeated. We saw just this morning Ipswich lost to Doncaster 4-1, so same scoreline that we lost to Fleetwood by. So it's not as if we can look at that Fleetwood game and say, oh, that's City showing its frailties and it's just us, we're going to crumble sort of thing. All the teams in this division will have days like that where they're off their game and the other side wants it more and they struggle to get up for it. So I think, as you say, if we can just kind of piece a few more wins together, and if you're winning 4 games for every loss that you have, or that sort of ratio, I think you'll be in pretty good stead. Changes for the lineup for this one, I guess the logical one would be Emmanuel coming back in for Coyle, presumably Wilkes back in for Adelican if he's fit, and otherwise Eves looked okay when he came off the bench for Wimbledon. He was a little bit rusty, but he also had some really good flashes as well. I feel like we're going to get in the same rhythm as last season where we say he just needs a goal to get his confidence going and then he'll be off and running. I don't know if I'd throw him in from the start for this one. I'd probably stick with Magennis.
Look, I think since his return from injury, he's now played 20 minutes or something this morning. So I think a few more cameos off the bench, building that time up maybe before he gets a start. But yeah, I thought he was okay this morning. Couple of nice runs and nice touches on the ball. Almost, or he had a bit of a shot, but if he's a bit off balance. But I think it was Doherty was standing in the box unmarked or something. He just had to, if he could have played the pass instead, it would have set up a goal to finish it off. But no, I think probably. I thought Adela Kuhn was not great this morning. So if Wilkes is healthy and fit again, then I'd expect him to come back in. Manuel for Coyle.
Graves keeping a spot, or
this is the one that I hate. Where it's not like someone played badly and so they got. It's just like someone was out and then I don't know. I'd like to see him keep his place. I feel though that if Device is fit, that he'll probably just step back in.
I think it's it's a big game against a team at the top of the division. 4 wins in 5. I think we'll probably opt for the experience of Device if he's fit. I'd maybe even see Jones come in. I think it'd be really harsh to bring Jones in for Greaves though, just because Greaves hasn't really done a whole lot wrong. Jones isn't that much older even, so you can't really argue that Jones has that much more experience. So maybe we do stick with Greaves if Device isn't available. But that'll probably be the most interesting selection dilemma that we have to face this week. What's your sense on the score for this one?
That's a tough one. Not sure. I think we'll get it. I can see us getting the win. Although now we're playing a team that's up there a bit higher. Whether we can maintain another clean sheet, not sure about. I think maybe like a 2-1 victory.
I'm going to be really interested to see if, because we're playing a better side or a quote unquote better side, whether that actually helps us, because I'm still finding it interesting that our bigger wins are coming away from home, where presumably sides are a little bit more keen to get out and attack us because their probably perception is it's our home game. We need to be trying to get something out of this, whereas they might come to the KCOM and set up the 2 banks of 4 or 5 at the back, as Wimbledon had this morning, going quite defensive. But Peterborough would presumably look to be trying to get something out of this game and be quite attacking, which might play into our hands a little bit more. And I think you're probably right. I don't know if we'll keep a clean sheet. I could say maybe it's a 2-1 or a 3-2 sort of. It could be quite a high-scoring game. Peterborough quite an attacking side, as they always have been. Clark Harris up forward for them looks to be. They're one of those clubs like Brentford as well as another one where they can just bring in a player and you just know that they're going to end up being a success. They sell their forward, they bring in a new forward, and the forward just carries on as if nothing's changed. So they've sold Tony to Brentford, funnily enough, and they've brought in Clark Harris from Bristol Rovers, and he looks a find as well. So it'll be a really interesting game, and I'll probably say a high-scoring game. I want to say we'll win it, but hey, we haven't had a draw yet. It might end up being a draw. Don't know. The other game will be next Wednesday morning, I think. It could be Thursday, I'm not sure, against Bristol Rovers, who haven't had a fantastic start. They've been okay. I mean, they have won 3 of their 5, so that's not terrible. 3 of their last 5, that's not terrible. But we haven't played them since the last time we were in League One, which was back in 03-04. So a long time between drinks for meetings with them. Not even a cup fixture. So pretty hard game to read in that sense. There's not a whole lot of form to read into it on. So I guess the only real question is, how do you see it going? Do you see us picking up another win in this one? It's difficult with League One teams, where we don't have a whole lot of knowledge about them. It's hard to read too much into the game, but yeah.
Look, I'd expect if it's another Saturday Wednesday sort of a game midweeker, and then probably a bit of rotation again come next Wednesday, come the Bristol game. I mean, it's hard to see any reason why we can't get the win, but it's a tough one to sort of call from this far away.
I guess the only interesting question I'd put to you is if Coyle was still injured, we don't really know the extent of his injury yet. And I mean, Josh Emanuel does a lot of running in that fullback slot. Whether McCann would consider playing a McLaughlin at right back. We recruited Emmanuel and Coyle for the very reason that we didn't really have any right backs in the squad before then. So we're sort of back into that dilemma if Coyle's out injured. Would you sort of be happy to see someone like a McLaughlin given a gig there? Would you be happy to see us sort of dip into the youth ranks potentially, or we probably need to treat this game with a bit more respect and just not rotate?
Look, I don't know. Could Fleming perhaps switch from left side to right side? That's probably a bit more of a natural. Like it's still a bit of a change, but from a centre half to a wide defense is fairly tactically different to one side to the other. It's just your good foot's on the wrong side now.
Yeah.
Don't know. I think has he played? Did Fleming play right back for us last year? Or was that?
That might have been
Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not suggesting that there'll be heaps of changes, but I think especially I know Honeyman's a key figure, but I don't. There's got to come a point you can't run forever. Surely, it's got to come a game where you go, all right, well, you just have a rest this game, and let Adela Kuhn or Mayer or someone go and sit in that attacking midfield gig for a game, because I feel like if you start him, you're never going to pull him off. He's just you just run and run and run. I feel like he's the kind of, if he was a racehorse, he'd run until his heart exploded, I think.
Yeah.
Oh God. Anyway, I'm getting off track.
No, that's okay. We just got a comment from Kieran, so I'll say cheers, Kieran. Thank you for the like, and absolutely, he's been a great free transfer. So a terrific pickup for us so far, and we were saying before, I mean, it's amazing when sides probably look at us as having one of the bigger transfer budgets in the league. The fact that one of our best players was a free pickup from a relegated League One side. So, potentially it just shows that our recruitment really is picking up under Lee Darnborough, and we are starting to find a few more gems at this level, which is great to see. So just before we leave things, and Kieran sort of started us off on the topic, but thank you everyone for listening in. If you can drop us a like, share the video around, we always appreciate it. Getting the news out about the episodes. Seen a few new people who've discovered us on Spotify, which is great to see. All our episodes are available there in audio. They're available on iTunes. So basically anywhere you get your podcasts from, which is great. We do have a Patreon. We are looking to record our first Patreon, not exclusive episode, but we're going to be releasing a series of bonus episodes first to our Patreons and then to everyone else probably a week or 10 days later, sort of thing like that, where we'll be looking back at the 2010 to 2020 decade for Hull City. So starting pre-Allams, which is, it seems like a long time ago now, all the way up to, unfortunately, relegation from the championship last season. But, that's still to come, and that'll be great fun to record. And tonight's episode has also been great fun to record. So thank you for joining me, Dan.
Not a problem anytime.
No problem. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. Until next time, come on, City.